Okay, so we are live. We'll wait to see, if people are gonna log on here. So this is the live show for When Hearts Awaken, which is Victoria Lum's romance. And I'm really excited to see what you guys think. I'm kind of biased towards Victoria Lum, so I might be gushing about it more than like what you guys thought. But
how many books have you read from her so far?
I read all the books in this current series. And then I only read the last book and like her first series. She's only been writing for a few years, actually. So that was, I was kind of impressed with her writing after only writing that amount. But yeah, and she's so nice, and I'm on her ARC team, so I am kind of like a little biased. So, but I really loved this one. I'm not even going to bury it. I loved it.
Bury it.
I'm not going to bury the lead. I loved it. But while we're waiting for some people to log on, do you guys want to talk about what you're currently reading?
I'm waiting for an ARC. I just finished Firefly, which was amazing. Oh my God. Have you read that one?
Which one?
To Catch a Firefly?
No.
It's an MM. Oh my God, it's so good. But I just finished it.
Doreen. Oh, from Colorado Springs.
Oh, hi, Doreen.
It's a nice area. Oh, and then I see she actually left us a comment before this show started too. So I marked it on my calendar. Yes, it does have really triggering, like some big trigger warnings in it, which I think she brought them up in the beginning. So hopefully that wasn't too tough for anybody.
Little areas. What are you reading right now, Mandy?
I'm reading The Wrong Quarterback.
Oh my God, is it so good?
I'm loving it.
Okay.
Which one? Who is that by again?
DR Jane.
DR Jane.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I still need to catch up with that other series where it was like the wrong pucking number and all of that. Like, I need to catch up on that.
They're so funny, those guys. They crack me up. They crack me up. They do some crazy things with their peens.
This is Walker's brother's story.
Yeah.
And so far, that actually hasn't happened in this one. I'm not done, though.
I mean, I feel like you gotta change it up because it's a little bit different, but yeah.
I'm so happy you loved it, Doreen. I already said I loved it, so I'm excited. I'm nervous and excited to see what you guys thought. Did you get Jessica's rating too, or was she able to read it at all?
She did not read it.
Okay. I didn't think so.
She wasn't going to be able to do the live, and we came back Sunday, and then she left Wednesday to go to Romantasy Con.
Yeah, I saw some pictures on Instagram, so I was like, oh, she's busy.
Yeah, so she was like, I was like, I'll read it and be our Bestie Book Reviews rep.
Rep for it.
That's awesome.
You want to talk about what we thought?
Yeah. So do you guys want me to start, or do you guys want to give me? How about you start, Jen? You start.
I already know what you rated it because I saw.
Yeah, you saw, because I had to review it too, because I have an ARC. So.
I mean, honestly, I gave it a 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought, it was the first book that I've ever read by Victoria Lum. What I really enjoyed was a lot of times when I read something with essay, the female character tends to lean towards being a little bit tougher and dealing with it a different way. So I really enjoyed watching her struggle with, we were watching her even all these years later, she hadn't dealt with it. And so and it was, you were in it with her. And I really appreciated that. It wasn't like the aftermath or anything. And I think even though she had a hard time dealing with it, I thought she was really just a badass. I just was really impressed with her. And I really loved it. It was a good book.
I'm so happy. What about you, Mandy? I saw by your face, I was like, oh no.
I didn't care for it. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay.
It's okay. Remember, I was in the Daisy Jane one. No.
Well,
so it's fine.
That one irritated me, but anyway.
Okay.
What did you end up giving it, Mandy? Like a 2 or 3?
I think I'd rate it a 3.
Okay.
It was okay. I just, it was my first book by her.
Mm-hmm.
I I felt like it was a little long. Like there was some times where I was a little
Yeah.
bored and I'm like, I don't think this needed to be. My Kindle said it was over 500 pages, but when I like
Mhm.
marked that I finished it on Goodreads, it had it just over 400. So I don't really know
Yeah.
where the page number lies exactly. But there were times where I felt like it just could have been a little bit shorter. But also,
Mhm.
I really don't like the Sex Club and all that. Like those books, I
Yeah.
love the Nashville neighborhood. It is wild and I appreciate it in those books. But outside
Mhm.
of that, I've never really found a book where I really enjoy that.
I was kind of worried because this is, I think, the fourth book in the series. So I was like, a lot of the characters and like the family, the Anderson family, I'm like, oh, they might not even like really care because you don't know these other characters coming in later in the book. I think you could definitely read it as a standalone, but I think I enjoyed it more because I read those books and I know each of those characters and like their journey and everything. So to me, I think I was like connecting to it, more from reading her previous books.
That makes sense, honestly, because I almost
Yeah.
took away like a point or a half a point because there were so many characters
Yeah.
and I couldn't keep them straight. But it didn't. I just kind of was like, whatever. I don't know who you are. You already had the story, but let me contact people. But yeah, there was a lot.
To me, like I gave it 6 stars. So like I freaking loved this book. And I don't usually talk about like my stuff, my personal stuff, but I think with victims of SA or the content that she's talking about, I think I connected to it because of my experience in the past. I don't usually bring that up on my channel or anything, but like this book was really, I thought it really touched on such sensitive, triggering stuff and how victims or survivors, how they cope with that trauma, like with the self-harm. I know that's really hard for some people, but it is a reality of because it's what people do and it gives them that like sense of power or release during like maybe a panic attack or just because you were not in control at all, especially if like you were drugged and you're having those kind of. So I can say I was more emotional for me because I connected to her story. And so I just thought it was really moving. And so I connected to a little bit of like that level. I think that's why it meant more to me. And I mean, I know Victoria, I'm on her ARC team. So she did reach out and she did let me know, like, cause I was telling her, oh, I'm already getting like emotional reading this. And she was like, yeah, she had sensitivity readers. And I think she did a really good job, like talking about it, but being real, because I think it's important to be realistic and tell these stories and like what victims go through. Like I loved Gianna Darling's Serpentine Valentine or whatever. I connected to it so much, even though it was so dark in the beginning and like what happens to her. Like I remember saying, I'm like, she's telling people stories and giving them a voice. And so I that's why it just really moved me. Pretty realistic Bertelius trauma experience. Like I think a lot of people that have been through that, and I'm not going to speak for them, but like a lot of people can connect to her journey and like hiding things and, self-harming and having PTSD and not really like she's not really working through it in the best way, especially when you're like alone, she's struggling alone. Like her sister didn't even know, her family didn't know. Like, so, I don't know. That's kind of why it was like really heavy, like to me. And then on top of that, like having Charles Vaughn was like one of my top book boyfriends now. Like I freaking loved him. And she actually did a post recently of like, she put Charles Vaughn, she's like, he's been like a cameo in every one of her books. And I didn't even realize that because I haven't read her previous series. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Like she's kind of been like introducing him in like every book to like lead up to this. So, but I didn't really realize that. If I'm For You as a standalone, that's good. I was kind of worried that people were going to be like, who's Ryland? Because Ryland is the one, Anderson, he's the one that's the teacher student one that I freaking Loved. So if you like a teacher student one, that one was really slow burn, like angsty. And the sex club stuff too is in that, but it's very small. It's like they own more of like this hotel and like nightlife for like the rich, and so that they can have a place to go where they're not watched. But Ryland is into primal play, so he has a whole level that was like created with like woods, and so they do primal play in the book. So me too. It was a trigger for me personally, and that's why I connected to it. Yeah, I don't know. I just really got emotional. I connected to it. I connected to like those thoughts of like, self-harm, like that, like just being out of control. And I just thought she was such a strong character, but also vulnerable. So it wasn't like I get tired of like the over-the-top badass heroine. And I thought she came off pretty vulnerable, and so she felt like real to me. Like she felt.
Well, she had a good character arc. Like I enjoyed that, and I thought that it was just interesting to see that she was having flashbacks of the night from sensory triggers. Because she didn't know if it was like one man or more than one man or what was happening.
Like the smell, like and like the voice and just certain things,
right?
And I mean, it's crazy how PTSD can affect you, and it'll hit you like you think I'm over this. And then I drove down a street where it was like near the place where my situation happened. And it was like, I had to go to the doctor drive past the street. And I like, didn't ever want to drive down that street because it would just bring that, like those feelings back.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, it's crazy.
Oh my God. He killed him. Like, when he got past her defenses and they were like, to, do it for the first time. And he was like, this is your first, that whole conversation was like, oh my God.
Yeah. I loved it. Like he was like total king of consent and like making her like, it was like, this is your first, like that whole scene of like, and then her finally having like her first sexual experience or orgasm from like her choice.
Right.
Like, because that was also the other thing is she felt like her body betrayed her and they made her feel shame for getting off.
Wanted it. Yeah.
And so like I know somebody else who also had been assaulted and the person got them off. Like and so she felt like such shame because it's like, oh well, he gave me an orgasm. But it's like you can't, like he took over your body. So it's like the fact that she was like using pain to like not deal with that, like it was just really heartbreaking. But I loved so many of the scenes with Charles where like I love the tango dancing scene was super hot. And then I loved that like he was sending her like those daily messages of like why he was into her. Like he really put in the work to get her to like bring down those walls and actually like open herself up to him.
Yeah, Mandy did the work for sure. Mandy's like, whatever.
Mandy's like, what'd you think of Charles, Mandy?
Okay, well, first, nobody was like the girl, his sister was in that coma for all these years, and she just happens to wake up like at the exact same time all this stuff is going down, and then the uncle just happens to be the guy that was responsible for this, and he just happened to be being inducted into like a secret society thing. Like, I don't know, it just, all of that seemed so far-fetched to all these things. And like she'd been in a coma for what was it, almost 8 years. And then, oh my gosh, she's also the missing best friend.
Which I think it was pretty obvious that was the thing. Like, because I was like, I don't know. People were saying, oh, that twist. And I'm like, I saw it coming from like the moment we heard about the.
No, I'm not saying that. Like, I didn't feel it was a twist at all. I just felt like
a lot of stuff that didn't need to be in there.
Were just like, really? Like, pick one or two of them, but all of them can't be that way.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, wait, Jan has a question for you, Mandy. Do you have a rec of a book that did something like this better?
What do you mean?
I guess maybe the same type of tropes, the same type of, like, maybe, but a better one.
Essay?
Oh, wait, hold on. Hello.
Hi, Jim. Are you talking about essay or some certain tropes?
Maybe essay, maybe, like, I don't know. I'm guessing it's, what do you mean, Jan? Give us more clarification. If it's the essay or the, The storyline was the hardest part for me. I know she'd have to wake up. Yeah. And then it was annoying to me at one part where like she was right outside the hospital, but then they get interrupted. And so it's like, okay, she's going to find out here. And then I'm like, oh, we're really going to put that off till like way later. And I'm like, okay. Well, and I'm not the biggest fan of the, like the amnesia trope or like where they forget certain, like, so I know this is setting up probably a later book because one of the other Andersons is like, in love with her, obviously.
Yeah, that's the next one. Basically,
yeah.
But like what you were, I mean, it's just, it doesn't make it. I don't know. It was really weird to me.
I let it go because I didn't care because I was so in my feels about like the romance and the hero and the whatever that I was kind of like, let me see here. Yeah, the essay and tropes. Not that you'd like a book in a book necessarily.
Right, but where they've done it well. We get what you're saying, right? So
yeah,
really a book that has done any essay well. I know that's hard to like.
That's a hard question. It's hard. You have to really think about it because it's like it's a hard. It's difficult content to write, you know, and like
for me,
I would have to.
Valentine.
I would have to
that's
think
another
about
one.
that for more than just a hot minute.
Yeah, and I thought it's still beating.
Yeah,
still beating.
I think
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but like the Serpentine Valentine one is like huge for me because it's like it's pretty hard to read because you're in her, like you're experiencing it during her time and like, but like all the thoughts that she was feeling, all the blaming, everything that ran through her head was what I felt and what I've known, like, you know, so it's like it felt so, it was hard. I was like crying. I was emotional reading that. And I was just like, wow, like I just thought it was so moving. So that's another one I thought was like done really, really well.
Still
I
beating.
would like to point out though, because the question was, do I feel like there was another book with that trope that it's done better? My issue with this book had nothing to do with
the essay
part or how that was handled. Like everyone's journey is going to be extremely different, and I commend anybody who writes that because I think well, Jessica wouldn't mind me talking about this. Like she had a double mastectomy because she has the BRCA gene. And so when she's found some books with that representation in it, it's helped her in many ways. And she can relate to that. And then I've also been able to relate to it because I was, you know, a part of her journey through all of that. And so I think that those types of stories need to be told because it's not all just like real life isn't just small town romance where the boy that you've been crushing on, you know, starts showing up every day in your life, and or the nanny romance, you know, those things. Like the romance is much more raw and real than in real life, or not even romance, love, I should say. So I just want to make that clear that that was not my issue. My issue
you didn't like the sister being in a coma and then waking up randomly.
It was just way too many coincidences, and I think that those, like, she should have picked maybe one of them to go with and then weaved in another way to set up the other story.
Because I think if that was out of it, like you might have enjoyed this book a lot more. Like, I mean, sometimes I've been having issues with also third act suspense elements too in books where I'm like, this book didn't need this, like to make it. Like, I do think it was added to Charles's like damage, you know, and show why he's like damaged and she's damaged. They both have their like traumas because he feels really guilty about what happened to his sister. So I think it added to that, but I didn't think we needed her to like wake up and then, you know, whatever. Like I would have been fine with her still being in a coma too, like, and then her waking up like in the next book or something, but not like, you know, it all happening at once.
Friends, and we have no idea what our best friend's brother looks like.
Well, I mean that, and she told him all about her boyfriend and her best friend. He knew her name was Alexis. He mentioned it. And I was like, how are you not putting the same together? You knew that your sister was in ballet. How do you not realize that they crossed? I don't understand that. Yeah. And you know that they were best friends, even though they were 4 years apart. You knew that they were, I mean, if you were that close to your sister, you would know she had a best friend that she took. I mean, because he knew a lot about ballet too, which I mean, that's where I kind of had a disconnect as well. I mean, I had issues with it, but it didn't take away from the overall story. But I agree with you, man.
Yeah.
It was too much, and I feel like it was too much for her setting up for the next book, and that out of the end of the story when it could have just been like one chapter or something.
You have to set up a book. Amber, I know you've been reading the Nest series by Piper Rain. I feel like they do a great job of getting you like very invested in the next book without throwing it in your face that they're trying to get you invested in the next book.
And it's very subtle at the end. They just kind of bring it up, but like you kind of know, okay, we're introducing more of this guy's like history, and oh, I really want his book. And then they kind of tease it at the end, and then okay, we know it's coming. I think that was kind of an issue too. I think Brooke Montgomery was doing that too with her books, where it was like too set up, trying to like, which it didn't bother me, but you know, like the one that I had an issue with was the one where it was again her like having the selective amnesia thing where she didn't remember and she hated the guy. And like in the previous book, they literally set that all up, did the scene of her like waking up, not knowing who he was. And then the next book, it was like, it took us to 50% to even get to that part of the story. And I was like, why'd you even tell that part in like the previous book? I don't know. It just didn't like work for me, but that was the only one in the series I was like kind of disappointed in. Because it was like her being a bitch to him for like 50% of the book and hating him. And I was like, I thought they should have done that a little bit earlier, but
I felt the same way in that one.
Me too.
I actually didn't continue on with this series because I'm like, I think maybe she's just not for me. Like, I got tired of how repetitive it kind of started to feel because there was too much going back in time. It's a fine line to keep your storylines going and not have them, you know, end up like 20 years in the future, but also not repeating the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, that was like, I was really tough one for me. And I had the arc. And so I felt bad, but I think I gave it like a 3.5 and then like had it rounded 3.5, but like rounded to 4 stars on Goodreads. But I was like pretty disappointed in that. I'm like, why do I even want this guy to be with this girl? And she didn't have a reason to treat him like that to me. And so like 50% of it, and then it's like instant love. Like we're instantly together. I'm like, no, it should have been like right at the beginning and then them moving through. So that one was a tough one for me. And then, you know,
the whole reason, I agree with you. The whole reason why she was pissed at him pissed me off. I was like, yeah, that's dumb. And then
I was like, why don't you communicate with him? And he would have told you the reality of the situation.
Like after she found out, she flipped so quickly on her. I was like, come on. You were a bitch to him the whole time.
I think that was the book too that she had a lot of delays getting out when I had the arc. Because it came out super delayed, which is whatever. Life happens. She had so much going on with her husband. So I'm like, maybe that was maybe she just kind of wasn't fully present for that book, but it just felt different than the other ones. I was like, ooh, like, but
was the next one better?
It was better there. I think it's better. And but it deals with a lot of traumatic stuff too. So she had a lot of trigger stuff and then the next book is his twin. And he's the one that has like, you know, where he's very reckless and wants to maybe unalive himself multiple times, you know, where it's like that dangerous kind of thing where he has to be his brother's keeper. And so that's going to be the brother's one now.
Yeah. This is the one that I'm working on. Actually, this is the one where,
and maybe I need to go back and try her again because after that one, I was just like, you know, my TBR has like 1,000, like literally like 1,000 books,
a million.
And so I was like, maybe she's just not the author for me, and I just you know moved on. But I mean, there's series that I've absolutely loved that I haven't finished either.
Yeah, that's my problem too. Is I bounce around too much, and I'm like, I gotta finish series. I gotta get to them. Like, I honestly, like, I was kind of wondering about Penelope Douglas for me because I just read Misconduct and I hated it.
Really?
And I was like, I don't know, like the last couple books that I read of hers, I didn't love. And I'm like, this doesn't feel like the same author that did Birthday Girl to me. That was like, so like Birthday Girl and Punk 57. I love those. So I'm like, is it, maybe she's not for me anymore? I don't know. But I was like, no, I'm still going to read her. I'm going to give her a chance. But like, I was so like, I don't know. It felt like they were just putting in smut for smut's sake. And that's what I felt with their last book they did in like that Corrupt series. Like I hated it, Nightfall. And like, it's like, okay, we're just adding sharing scenes to add more spice because you want that content. Usually big stories in our personal lives are more. Yeah, we don't want to. Yeah, I was reading, like, I was listening to historical romance, and it was like, it was good writing, but I was dying because it was literally every day, it was her daily routine and like fixing up the house and cleaning and making food. And I'm like,
No, I
don't care.
I do that on a daily. I don't need your.
I don't want to read your chores, okay? Can we have the hero and heroine in the same room? Like they weren't even together for like the first 50%. I was like, what the heck is this?
So have
like
you
I'm
guys
used
read Carrie Ann Cole's series with Asher?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
But remember, I hated Asher's book.
You did?
I DNF'd it.
I haven't read Asher.
Oh, okay. Well,
I got really mad at that heroine. So
in Asher's book, she finally wakes up and she's been in a coma for years and years and years. And that didn't bother me. I mean, yes, you have to sustain some belief. I think the problem with this one is just there were too many things that and you could see them coming from the very beginning. And I think for me, if she would have just picked like one of those to go with, I think it would have been better.
I think it would have been fine if she went into that room and she saw it was her friend, that whatever, and like that was it. She doesn't wake up. There's all this stuff going on. Again, that is very unrealistic, but I would suspend my belief, whatever. But I don't know, like I do agree that was kind of out there, and I was that's why I even like wrote down a question in my thing, like, what'd you guys think of that like ending sister thing? Because I was like, I don't know, like that's the only part that was kind of iffy, but like I just was so into the romance, so into the hero, so into like her personal journey and like her growth that like I didn't care. Like I ended up just being like, oh, I don't care about that
but then
part.
It was also not only her best friend and her boyfriend's sister, it's also her half brother's girlfriend or love interest at one point in time that he's been pining for. I think it could have been better if you would have taken that, like all that away, and maybe that Ian had done something to her and that's why she wanted to like confide in them. But I think they were trying to still make Ian not be like as bad of a guy because he was only doing it to get into the association. Like he wasn't,
because he wanted
out there like
he wanted
randomly assaulting women all the time, which he still was. I
still was like, you die.
No, he's like a goner for me. Like I'm like,
just the one, and I was made to do it, dude.
Yeah.
Bye.
In a way that almost made him worse, in my opinion.
Yeah, like he went along with it because he wanted something. Like it's like,
and I'm so sorry that I've helped you be so much better as Odile or Odette, and I'm like, oh my god, shut up now.
Yeah. No. Well, and like the trauma of like her like thinking it's him, and then being told she's crazy. It's not really him. Then it is him, and like she'd been working one-on-one with her abuser. It's like, so yeah, he needed to go. But and also another thing is like her
a little bit into that with the whole like he would never do something like that. You're not remembering it correctly.
Yeah.
And then once he eventually finds out, he eventually accepts that. But he like gaslit her. That's kind of, I think, where I started to not like him. I'm glad everybody else found him. But I don't know. Maybe I was just like in a mood while I was reading
I think I didn't mind that because like he was kind of like a father figure for him, and he trusted him so much that like he couldn't like deal with that. And it was, it was fucked up, but like, and that's the other thing too, is it's like a reality, like people don't believe you. Like she actually went to authorities, even though she didn't go to her family, and they basically didn't listen to her because she was drugged or this or that. And so nothing really like happened with it. And so it's like, then you don't really trust anyone.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like it's tough, but I loved how like he was like giving her the roses with the thorns, and just like he knew her and was like really like keying into her and just, I loved their romance. And yeah. But the sister thing, maybe not so much.
I knew that they were like, she was just trying to set up for the next one. So I kind of like,
yeah,
like a lot of authors do that. They'll just put in whatever the epilogue is. It's basically like the next one, but that one just went a little bit overboard. But
yeah,
I'm over it. Like the story's over for me at this point, and I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, we're done with our romance.
Yeah.
Yes, people don't believe you. Like, I can honestly say, like, I didn't say anything. I never did anything about it because I was like, oh, I was drinking. I was this. I was seen with the person earlier in the night. Like, you don't think people will believe you. So I don't know. I just really liked her character and like how strong she was. But like, she also had so many insecurities and like issues that she really had to deal with. So, but well, I'm glad you liked it, Jen. Sorry you didn't love it, Mandy.
It's okay. We're not.
I'm actually going to go back and read her first series this year. I want to try and read her first series to see, because I think her writing's like getting better too with each book. The previous book before this was like kind of like had gothic vibes, and like it was interesting. Like, I really liked that one too. So the first one in this series, I was just kind of okay. I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, I didn't love it. And then I liked each one after that.
I love a good amnesia romance. It's like one of my favorite tropes. So I might have to try this next one and see
if it's better.
Yeah. I'm always
well, any other thoughts you guys want to talk about?
No, I'm glad we read it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, and I think it was because I had not been reading the best things lately. So for something to like really keep into it, I appreciated it. So I think that's another reason why I gave it such high marks.
I think she writes more emotional. Like when I went in starting to read her, I'm like, oh, it's a teacher student. Oh, it's a billionaire, blah, blah. But like, I thought it like it really moved me in like the teacher student one with Rylan, because it was like they both bond over the loss of their parents. Like, they deal with like dark, like other stuff. And that one was such a slow burn too, that like you were like dying for them to get together. So like, I don't know. I wasn't expecting it like to hit me emotionally sometimes when I read her books, and who knows, it could just be the stage I'm in when I get like overly emotional with the book. Sometimes I'm like, oh, is it that time of the month? Because sometimes all of a sudden I'm super emotional. I'm crying on a mafia romance. Why am I crying on a mafia romance?
Mafia can make you cry too.
Yeah. Yeah, I just read Darkest Sins, and like, I mean, not Darkest Sins, sorry, Sweet Prison, and I was just like, I loved it so much. Like, did you like that one, Mandy? I think I might have saw like, because I was looking at people's ratings, and I was like, oh, Mandy didn't like this one.
Wait a minute, which one was that one?
It was like the most recent one in the. Not the like, it's like in the Perfectly Imperfect, where he was in prison and the stepbrother and all that.
Oh yeah. It was the longest one. It was the longest.
Yeah, it was long.
Yeah, and it's
weird because you're so used to hers being under 300, and each one's like gotten like longer and longer. I'm like, oh, she's not doing her short books anymore.
I love Neva Altai so much, and what is it? Oh.
I can never remember the name.
Third or fourth book where he has amnesia, and so she convinces him that they're in love because she's been in love.
That one.
That was like, oh, I love that one so much.
I didn't like that one as much.
Really?
It took me out with the whole I needed something in me at all times, and I was like,
oh yeah, was that the one where it was like during all night?
Yep, put a finger
the entire night. I was like, okay, I can't. Like, you got to get out at some point. Like
UTIs, people, UTIs.
I know. I was like, that kept taking me out of the story. I'm like, no. Like, that's not safe.
See, that's where I suspended my belief. See, I can do it, but you can only ask me to do it like once or twice in a story. But yeah, I can't tell you why I didn't like the last one, because it would be major spoilery, but there were just, I had some issues, and it kind of
Yeah.
was like, the Gibbsy book where like nobody
I
was
haven't
more
read that one yet.
disappointed than myself and how much I didn't like it.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't want that. I need a redo. Please.
Yes.
I need a redo.
I know. I was like, I haven't read it yet. And then when you guys told me how much you didn't like it, I was like, maybe I should just get the audiobook so I don't get like angry and I can get through it. I don't know.
I'm upset. Gibbsy, you did him wrong, dude. Like I need a redo.
Thanks, Doreen. I really appreciate that. I know, like, for me, it was emotional too and connected for those reasons too. So, yeah, but I can't believe she did. I can't imagine how you could do Gibbsy wrong because he was like one of my favorite characters.
Well, go ahead and read it.
Like,
yeah, read the book and you'll know. It was like it wasn't even the same author writing.
It wasn't even.
And it's like her other books are so good, and then she like flops with that.
It was like these characters, we've just met them and we never knew who they were, and like to not even give Gibbsy like even the. I mean, he's like, I did want substance from him, yes, and I knew we would get that, but Gibbsy is Gibbsy. I just don't feel like we got him. It was a completely different person than who I grew to love.
That's so sad.
Like, if you read that book, you would be like, and you knew it was the same author and you didn't know anything about how the books were written, you'd be like, this was like her very first book she ever wrote, and man, did she improve. Like, that's how it felt. It doesn't feel like a book by, I mean, it really felt like it was by a different author, and I was so disappointed that I didn't love it. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, I waited so long for this book, and it was just such a letdown.
It was sad.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
I was putting it off, and then now, like, hearing this, like, I kept putting it off now. I'm kind of like, oh, you know, I don't want to ruin my love of that series.
Yeah, just don't read it.
Just don't read it, and I'm going to read it.
Joanne, did you give this When Hearts Awaken a 3.5?
Yeah, I think that's what she's saying.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you. Mandy didn't like it either.
A little more seen.
Well, if you guys like a teacher student, I recommend the other one too in the series because I really, really like that. Oh, she says yes. That's the 3.5 for this one.
Thank you, Joanne.
Yeah, you're probably not the only one. I was really worried. I'm like, okay, I'm like blowing this up, loving it because I'm connecting to it on a different level. I'm like, what if they hate it? Like, I was like, oh no. But you know, we all have our different opinions on these books. So it's gonna happen.
Really, really boring buddy reads if we always showed up and we're like, we all
love it.
It was great. Like, we'd have nothing to talk about if they were always just 5-star reads from us.
Yeah.
You guys, I mean, I might be in the minority here, but like, do you ever finish a book and you go, okay, that was 5 stars, and then an hour or 2 hours later you sit with it and you're like, I really want to give it like a 3.5 or a 4.
Yeah, sometimes it happens when I'm talking about it like on my weekly wrap up. Like, I'll be like, wait,
maybe I didn't really like that as much as I thought I did.
Right.
Well, because sometimes I'm in a certain mood too when I'm like, oh, this is a 6-star. This is amazing. And then I'm like, would it hold up on a reread like later? Or was it just that time in my life or what I was feeling that made me like love it so much?
Right. Or like the next book in that book, like the book I read after that was just, it blew everything out of the water. I'm like, does it hold up to that? No. But like, do I still keep it at a 5?
That's like when I was doing the Immortals After Dark, A Hunger Like No Other. I was like, oh, I really enjoyed it, but it didn't blow me away. So I'm going to give it a 4-star. But then when I was talking in the live, I was like really loving a lot about it that I was like, did I rate it too low? Like, because then I read other ones in the series that I'm like, I didn't like it as much, but I'm rating it the same. So it doesn't make sense.
I tend to just go typically with my like initial feeling when I finish the book, like what it is. There have been times though where I've rated a book a 4-star and then like weeks later I'll still be thinking about it and I'm like, because I read so much that if a book is still in my mind, like 10, 15 books later, then maybe it wasn't a 4-star. So there's been a few
Yeah.
times where I've adjusted from a 4 to a 5, but I've never gone back that I can think of, and I'm where I've taken a book from a 5-star and marked it down, because I'm like, in that moment it was a 5-star book for me.
That makes sense. I have done both, but that makes more sense. Of in that moment of finishing it, I wanted to give it a 5, so maybe I should leave it as a 5.
Yeah.
And Joanne, yes, Mandy did not.
Mandy didn't care for it.
She said, "Oh,
there were just way too many. We kind of hashed this out, but just real briefly to catch up, Joanne. I just felt like there was way too many coincidences and beliefs that we had to suspend for this, and we kind of talked about, like, maybe if she would have focused on, like, it just being the best friend, or it just being his girlfriend, or it not being his uncle, like, there was just way too many interconnections there for nobody to even know that they know each other.
Mm-hmm. That's part of my problem, that like I'm reading the Outlander during the Outlander read along, and I'm like, wait, this is back in the old America, and how do these random characters keep running into each other, and this person's connected to this person? I'm like, how would you even run into like all these people like out in the wild, like, and out? It just, so that part, sometimes I'm like, okay, seriously, like, oh, and now Jamie's running into like his son that like isn't, he never really got to claim as his son. I'm like, it's just a little much. But anyways, Doreen, I love teacher student. Yes, I want to read Raylan's story. Naughty. I wish I had a hot teacher, you know, when I was going to school. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I had a crush on my brother's teacher, but like I never had like the hot teacher growing up. Or the hot brother's best friend. Like when you read books, I'm like, my brother's best friends were all dorks, you know, like, and like not great. I'm like, why didn't I have a hot brother's best friend? The association, how that operated, was the creepiest part for me. Yeah, that was a little much too. Like adding that in, like, to the book.
But in the other books,
no, they don't. Like, so there is the hotel, like the thing they run is in the other books, like where some of them go to like certain levels for certain kinks type of thing. But mostly it's like they're just meeting up there. Their family owns that place and they get drinks and stuff. The previous, like not the previous one, but the teacher student one had like the primal play floor. So that's more kind of in it, but it's not like fully centered around like the sex club or anything like that either too. Yeah, but anyways.
I know we started off with like what we're reading now, but do we want to recap and then talk about what we're going to read?
Sure. I didn't say what I was reading. I'm reading the second part of like this series. I read Clayton, and then this one is Dallas, and it was like super angsty shifter. Like it really put me through my feels on the first one, and then I never went to the second one. So, of course. And then I'm going to start a Michelle Hurd audiobook of one of her mafia romances that I bought like during the Audible sale. And then do you guys want to bring up what you were reading again?
I'm waiting on an arc of Sin With Me. And then I think I'm going to read, what is it called? The Devil Himself by B.B. Easton.
Oh.
That after.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Mandy?
I'm reading The Wrong Quarterback by C.R. Jane.
I love that cover.
I'm listening to Best Friend for Never by Tegan Hunter.
Best Friend for Never. What is that, like a best friend to lovers, or?
Yes, they were high school best friends, and then he left to go to California, to LA, to be an actor, and then he's returning 10 years later, and they were best friends, but they had feelings.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I remember I went to go sign up for that way too late, and it was like, this is gone. I'm like, oh, because I always try to get the ALCs for authors I've never read before. So like I'm trying, you know, that's why I finally tried Laura Pavlov for the first time. And I'm like, how did I never read her? Like I love her Magnolia Falls or whatever series. I only read the last two in that. So I'm gonna go back and read, like, I think it's like the Romeo one is like the next, the first
Romeo.
one. Yeah, I want to read that this month. I have it on my TBR. Hopefully I get to it. Oh, Brutal Ambition. I loved that. I'm thinking is that the one with Killian? I think that's the Brutal Ambition one. I don't know if you guys are up to date with like San Mariano stuff, but I really actually enjoyed that one quite a bit. I liked it because he was kind of like a more relaxed San Mariano hero. Like, yeah, he does some suggestive, like effed up stuff, but like he wasn't like as bad as like some of her other ones. So I was like, oh, he's kind of like a sweet one. Yeah, but I really liked that one. I think it's kind of long too. I think Sam Mariano, sometimes she writes like really long ones.
And next month we're on y'all's channel, Bestie Book Reviews, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Next, we're gonna read Finding Home by Lauren Rowe. It comes out February 26th. The audio also comes out February 26th, and that's by Andy Arndt and Sean Masters. So that'll be March 23rd, 1 p.m. Pacific time on Bestie Book Reviews.
And we both haven't read her, me and Jen.
I haven't read her.
We haven't read her.
You both haven't read her at all?
No. I had to look up on Goodreads. I'm like, maybe I did read her, and I'm like, no, I actually haven't. So I'm excited to try a new author. Okay. Let's see. Oh, The Prince of Broadway. You know, I love that, Doreen. I think I just gave that 6 stars. I was like really feeling myself with like the book, like a couple of the books that I read like this last month. I love Joanna Shoup. So I don't think you guys totally read a lot of historical romance, right?
No.
But Joanna Shoup, I really love her stuff. You've probably read, if you read her Mafia series, you might have Mia Finelli. That's also Joanna Shoup, but she does like a Mafia series.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, which is really cool. You know, it's completely different from like what her and I love that series. I have it somewhere, but
is her writing like, I mean,
different?
It's totally different.
It's totally different, but is it like still like really good?
I think it's really good. I love that series. I mean, it's kind of like the first duet is kind of frustrating because you'll get really frustrated with the hero, but the second part of the duet really helps and the start of that series. But I really loved it. I still need to read the last book. Again, I haven't finished it, and then obviously that's like totally different. She's going to be it's going to be first person, you know, it's not going to be the type of POV you guys kind of hard time with like historical romance. So, but she writes spicier historical romance too. So she has some good spice in her historicals.
If I can listen to historical romance, I find I enjoy it much more than trying to read it.
Yes. I actually love audiobooks for historical romance. That's why I keep my AnyPlay because they have so much historical romance. And so like I keep that because I love listening to historical romance audio. Like I just love it better. I love audiobooks on historical.
So regardless of Finding Home, because obviously I haven't read it, but regardless of Finding Home, I think you guys really need to read Hero by Lauren Rowe. It is so good. There's really good audio for it too.
You or Jessica that told me?
I've seen that.
I've seen check out Hero, and I said, and I did. I looked it up, and I was like, oh my god, I'm putting it on my TBR right now.
It was me.
I've seen that cover at like a bunch of places. So like right when I see that, I'm like, oh, okay, that totally looks familiar.
And so I put it on my TBR. Like, all right, I took a screenshot of that because I was like, okay, I think
it is so good. Jessica told me to read it like when I first started reading. Like she gave me like all like the greats, you know, and that was one of them. And I listen to it and I read a lot and I can tell you exactly where I was standing on my property because I stopped what I was doing and I just stood there like crying in the prologue. It was so good. And that was like a couple of years ago. So
it's emotional too. Oh my God. Okay.
The prologue will get you.
You're saying the prologue, you were sitting there crying. You didn't even, oh, damn. Okay. All right. I might be reading that next month before we read the... Have
you read Sea of Ruin yet, Jen?
Oh my, shut up about that.
Okay, because I cried in the prologue of that book. Like, I was bawling.
I'm reading it and listening to it simultaneously. I'm never going to get through this freaking book.
Yeah, like I remember I was bawling hysterically, like reading her as a kid, and I'm like, oh my god, Pam's got me crying, like
Wait.
in the beginning of this book.
You read Pam Godwin when you were a kid?
No, I said when she's the beginning when the character's a kid.
I was like, wait a minute, Amber.
No, I'm way too old. I'm way too old to have read that when I was a kid.
Your face.
So confused.
I did read Kathleen E. Woodowis when I was a kid, and that's like very like bodice ripper historical romance. And I think about that, like she's like my go-to where I always reread her stuff because it makes me nostalgic. But I'm like, there's like sexual assault on page. It's like tough, like it's dark. And I'm like, oh, this is like my favorite book growing up as a kid.
Dude, I read V.C. Andrews when I was like grade school. What the hell was my mom thinking? But I did. Thanks, Jan.
So is this the cover you've seen for Heroes?
Yes.
Yeah. So good.
Okay, I'll have to add that to my never-ending TBR.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah, Sea of Ruin. Like it's always going to be like one of my favorite. Are you liking it, Jen, or is it?
I'm loving it. I just
okay.
Through
I
it.
just want to make sure.
I'm trying to read it, and it's just I have so much, but it was like I don't know what it was. I think it was in the mood when I started reading it, and then I bought the audio, and that's been helping a lot. But, I mean, it's.
I listen to it too.
I think it's better for me if I listen to it, but it's just I have a really hard time with audios lately. Like I think I associate audiobooks with driving because I used to drive very long distances, and that's when I would get a lot of my reading done and a lot of audiobooks. And it's just so hard for me to pick one up now. But I
listen to a lot because I can listen to them at work. Like I'm in a cubicle, and so I'll just have one in my ear. So that's why I can get like through a lot more audiobooks and stuff because I drive kind of further, every day. It's like a 40-minute drive to work. So it's like I can, so that's why I'm able to get through like a lot of audiobooks.
It's the one thing I miss. I'm like, man.
I listen while I'm doing like chores.
Yeah. Like I'll do it when I'm cleaning the house too or something. I'll just put on an audiobook. Like I'm like, I don't even listen to my Spotify anymore. Like the only time I used it recently was for an audiobook because you have like the audiobook, like 15 hours with a premium. I'm like, that's not enough. Like 15 hours is nothing of audiobook time. So far, my favorite one is Lessons in Sin. Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
that's a good teacher student naughty one too. Like priest type of thing.
Oh, God, I love him. Dark Notes was a good one.
Oh yeah, Dark Notes. Dark Notes is probably my favorite, Pam.
That's the first one I think I read, and like I was crying reading that one too. So
that's another one. That's one that has
that's done very well.
Yeah,
I had a hard time reading that. I'm like, this is horrible. Like, just really felt for her. And Jessica again told me to read that when I first started reading because she just threw me right in there. And and when I say first started reading, I mean like reading romance.
Yeah.
When I got back into reading, I guess would be a good way to put it. Because she didn't think that the after series was like the best reading material. She's like, you have to start reading better stuff.
That's what's funny is I got back into reading romance by reading the After series, like around like I think it was like COVID time or whatever. And I like binged it and I was like, oh my God. And so like I got like started watching YouTube booktube stuff and then it like totally sucked me in because I was, I read like not romantasy, but like fantasy or like thrillers and stuff. And so I wasn't even reading romance really for a long time. And like the After series, which I'm like, would that even like hold up if I reread that? Because it's so like, it's a little over the top, but it was like, I couldn't put that series down.
Yeah.
I loved it. Better for you, Mandy. Put the After series down. I could hear Jessica. I got something better for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is high quality material here. Let me.
Here's some Pam Godwin.
Oh, The Deal by Elle Kennedy. That's another one that has the essay in it, and I felt like that was done really well.
Yes,
I
Joanne.
love that book. That was my first fake dating too. Like when I started reading romance again, it was one of the first things I read, and I was like, it's always like my favorite fake dating one. Like I just love that book.
I loved it too. I don't know, like, would I still love it if I read it again? I read it right after. But I don't reread books. So.
Yeah. I don't really either. Like I've reread historicals, but like I don't reread a lot of like other stuff. I reread like a couple fantasy because I was preparing to finally finish ACOTAR this year. So I reread the first two. But like I don't really reread a ton because there's so much new books that I need to read that like I just don't. But sometimes I'm nostalgic. Like that Kathleen E. Woodowitz that I was talking about, I kind of want to reread it again. And it's like my most reread book, but part of me is like, I'm like kind of wondering if I'll love it as much as I did when I was younger.
I want to reread. I want to reread Binding and Keeping 13. I want to reread Don't Kiss the Bride, and I want to reread Still Beating this year.
Oh yeah. I started my romance journey with Sylvan.
I'm like always afraid to reread. Like Birthday Girl's like my favorite, and people always ask me like, "Oh, how many times have you read it?" And I'm like, once. And
yeah, I'm scared I wouldn't love it as much the second time.
What if I don't like it? But Jessica's like, well, you physically read them, so why don't you listen to them? And I'm like, I don't want to. I'm
telling you, like, do it, because I've read it once and listened to it twice.
I want to reread the Frozen Fate trilogy by Pam Godwin with the audiobooks because I want to annotate them.
Yeah.
But I want to do it like, so I'm waiting till I get like all the audiobooks and then probably like later because I just read them this last year and I don't want to go through the trauma so soon.
Birthday Girl, Mandy, Birthday Girl.
Birthday Girl, okay.
And I listened
I'll have to do it.
157 twice. But I read,
yes.
And to Doreen, listen, Professor Emerson. Got my freaking heart there.
I don't think I've read that. Celine Renard. I'll have to look that up.
I don't think I've read that either.
Who is it? Sylvain Renard.
Amber, like, are you gonna dedicate like 6 months to like annotating?
No. Those books would be very hard.
I'm just glanced up at my shelf. I mean, those are thick books.
I know.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I got to do it with audio, so maybe it would be easier. But
how? Like, have you ever annotated while listening? Is that harder?
Yeah,
or easier to do whenever.
I liked it. I actually did the ACOTAR with the graphic audio, so I had the graphic audio going, and I was reading it, and so like I really liked it. It like. I don't know. I really enjoy. I think that's why I like cried more too. Like I was like crying listening to the graphic audio of
the right, so that you would know where you're at. Oh, I want to annotate this. So you have to be like doing both at the same time.
Yeah, and like I always have to like do it at the table because I'm trying to make it all perfect and like the lines perfect. So then my back will start like killing me, like hunched over. So I could only do it for a certain period of time because I tried annotating in bed and I'm like, oh, this highlighting and it's not looking good. I don't reread usually. I have too much on my TBR. Yeah. My mom always falls asleep with audio. I'm like, well, why don't you put an audiobook while you drive? But she has to drive to music. So I've been trying to get her like read more. Let's see here. When I start rereading again, I read the Madison Kate. Oh, I love that series.
Things about that. I haven't read that.
Yeah, that one was like bingeable. Like I loved that. I want to read. I still have had it on my TBR since I read the Madison Kate series, and it was like the Seventh Circle, like the next one, like next series that's kind of connected to it. And I still haven't got to it, but yeah. Well,
does anybody have any final thoughts?
Any final thoughts? Because we're almost at an hour here.
But
well, I'm excited for us to get to this Lauren Rowe book, but now I got to put the hero on my TBR, so that'll be fun.
So good.
That's, yeah, you guys, you had me hooked. Oh my God.
I know when Jen in our chat, she goes, oh, I haven't read that. And I was like, oh, me neither.
Like, did you see the cover?
I know. Like, I think I just
some good covers
just to have the book.
Yeah.
My dad's coming this weekend, this coming weekend, and he's saying he'll be like, when he goes to sleep, he'll be looking at this. And so I'm like, what book should I?
Display your books.
All the hot men.
All the dark romance. Okay, well, anyways, thanks guys. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for reading and joining us for this buddy read. And we will see you guys next month on Bestie Book Reviews channel. All right. Bye.
Bye.